Keith has an amazing background. He is Chief Strategy Officer Emeritus at the Tesla Foundation. And there his leadership has been focused on identifying and nurturing talent and enriching human potential for invention. Well, Keith, I'm really happy to have you with us and eager to learn from your insights. Take it away.
Well, thank you so much, Martha, for that kind introduction. Let's go on a journey. As we begin, let's take a moment to be mindful. Eudaimonia. So what is the good life? How do we flourish and experience well-being? It's a universal question. And Aristotle's concept of eudaimonia truly speaks to this, characteristics of practical wisdom. If Aristotle was alive today, how would these values be incorporated in action for students? Standardized testing, SAT scores, teaching to the test? That's not likely. Perhaps humanities and sports may offer up histories tied to tales of creativity, virtue of character, excellence, imagination, endurance, ethical wisdom, determination, well-being, perseverance, and innovation. Where my experience is what I agree to attend to, which is a phrase by philosopher William James that really speaks to an elemental form of agency shaping. And this is helpful for students on two fronts. One, as a form of teamwork, and we'll see later for community. And two, as it relates to meaning and practical effect. So everyone knows what attention is. It's the taking of possession by the mind in clear and vivid form. And in this, many students and student athletes practice this kind of disciplined discernment. And yet in the midst of this, many experience mental health challenges. So the mental health of students and how are students suffering? It's tough being a kid. Adolescence is certainly an especially difficult time. And young adults are confronted with a variety of new experiences, especially in the transition from high school to college. And it may be difficult for them to recognize and address the emotions that are associated, with this upheaval. Similarly, at this time, the body is going through major physical changes, and the brain and body grows towards adulthood, and these mental issues become much more apparent. So, where do we go from here? Well, student well-being is important not only for the years that these young folks spend on campus, but also for their ability to succeed in the workplace and have a sustainable quality of life. Students that have challenges adjusting to college are more likely to drop out before earning their degree, and higher education is correlated with a better quality of life as measured by subjective well-being, sense of control, happiness, and life satisfaction. So, helping students thrive may also then result in a healthier and happier workforce. Through evidence-based interventions, then, students can develop skills to build stronger resilience and enable them to live a life with greater flourishing, not only in college, but for their entire lives. Now, some might say, why is this generation different from those in the past? And that's related to some of the unique challenges in today's world, whether it's social media and technology use, or less in-person social interaction, or over-involved parents, diversity, inequity, inclusion issues, and certainly not to mention recent challenges related to the coronavirus pandemic or the incidents throughout the country related to inequity and police brutality. So these students are experiencing a lack of self-care. So some students do arrive at college with skills that they need to manage their time and take care of themselves, but many do not. One area here is related to the importance of sleep and its impact on cognitive ability and depressive symptoms. Many students certainly report having insufficient sleep, which can lead to lower grade point averages, impaired mood, and increased risk of depression. And they also eat poorly and don't get enough exercise, and this can also negatively impact academic performance. So what do we need? We need all hands on deck. And one element of all hands on deck is a change that occurred 20 years ago inside the field of standardized institutional psychology when Dr. Martin Seligman and his colleague Mikhail Chelminsky helped to found the field of positive psychology. So these are solutions that are helping students to flourish. Standard psychology practices have relieved the suffering of many, but did not really address well-being and human flourishing. In particular, if you look at it from a rating scale perspective, from -10 to +10, standard psychology is intended to move individuals from negative to 0. And yet there were far fewer efforts that were made to move people to the right of 0, where individuals can lead their best lives. And this is what positive psychology is all about. Because the absence of mental illness does not necessarily equate to the presence of mental well-being. So one of the fundamental assumptions, to go back to the eudaimonia and Aristotle notation, is that positive psychology foundation is that human goodness is as essential and authentic to humans as is disease and mental illness. Neither one is secondary or should take a back seat to the other, which then again brings us back to the question of what is the good life and what is happiness and what is the role that society plays in that. Well, Seligman fashioned a toolkit, a playbook, if you will, along with Chris Peterson, creating a classification that provided a common language for accessing the strengths and virtues that make the good life possible. This was their character strengths and virtues. 6 of the virtues: wisdom and knowledge, courage, humanity, justice, and temperance, and transcendence, and that there were 24 character strengths that enabled individuals to be able to assess their own strengths. And this survey of character strengths has had millions of folks utilize that in the past number of years. So there's a function for positive interventions. And after this section, I'll take a few quick questions. Positive interventions refer to the nature of activities whose primary focus is improving one's life without harm to another, which is particularly relevant in recent history. In an effort to enable more people to flourish, positive psychology practitioners have introduced positive interventions as a way to promote well-being. And there's been a lot of research to determine what factors help to make positive intervention successful. For example, members of individual cultures, more Western, benefit from more current positive interventions than members of collectivist cultures. Let's say perhaps those based on Confucianism or filial piety. And for this reason, it's especially important on diverse college campuses to offer a variety of options and to customize interventions based on individual preferences and cultural needs. So here's the subset, which is student athlete and character and academic practice. This again speaks to the different kinds of things that student athletes have that are maybe a little bit different from regular students in terms of the habits and tendencies around situational awareness and their mental game for them to focus in on a particular activity when they're playing their sport. They do a lot of team building work, which is more collaborative. They do a lot of mindfulness and meditation work so they can perform at a high level. And then also the data suggests the growth mindset can lead to better learning, emotional and mental health outcomes. And some deans of admissions have said that this actually can be translated from sport usage into intellectual pursuit and intellectual curiosity. So there's can be a connection between student athlete performance on the court and also in the classroom. And hopefully those things will help to build community. So diversity of thought, and this is related to, again, how we look to measure students from all walks. And there is evidence to suggest that there are a number of students, girls and students of color, that have robust characteristics that truly aren't identified, not only in standardized testing formats, but also perhaps robust characteristics that are not seen either by administrators or by teachers. You know, social norms are not, narrow. It's not a narrow activity, and they're not in a vacuum because it's social. And so this information here is just speaking to a particular group of students and how social norms has really challenged them in terms of how they view themselves and how they are provided access and opportunities or not in the system that they're engaged in. These kinds of things can be really challenging, these social norms and durable inequity. We're seeing that all across the news now, as though structural racism and inequality related to healthcare and COVID and economic mobility, as though these are new things. And so we want to be clear about how these things function and look to new opportunities to recalibrate and reset where people's and organizations' special interests are. And as research would indicate, some folks inside of positive psychology, and especially the humanities, it's the humanities and other elements that are really crucial to try and help people be able to find a new way of thinking relative to that. Mattering and meaning, this is really, really critical in terms of everything that's been going on with those on the front lines in terms of coronavirus, essential workers, and clearly the folks that have lost their lives at the hands of police brutality. So, do I even matter? That's a question, and I don't know if that's not an existential question, as we can see. That's a real, tried and true question in the face of a virus and an organic virus and a human virus. So this is really going to take a collective impact. And so all students and student athletes need folks and organizations who are more deeply invested in their success beyond the classroom, beyond the boardroom, beyond the sports field. So we do need to be together. And as Dr. Sullivan notes, creativity is bound up in our ability to find new ways around old problems. So just as educational institutions' vision is to transform students from the inside out, so too can students themselves be transformed. We must understand that well-being is supple and developable. Thank you so much.
Your emphasis that the responsibility of growing the next generation of mentally healthy humans as whole people is not siloed and will take all elements of our world.